Hi Paras, welcome to GoKwik D2C podcast. So I did happen to go through your LinkedIn profile today, and I found something very interesting. So I saw that you're a IIT graduate, but you're also you did some sort of a dance instructor kind of thing at maybe back I think around the same time. So I mean, was that the inception point for for Leaf with tech and entertainment coming together?
In some ways, of course. Yeah, that's right. So I was one of the top jazz dancers in the country.
Wow.
So
Okay.
jazz as an art form was very, very appealing to me. I really loved it. I joined as a student. This was not inside IIT. This was, of course, outside IIT. It's an organization called DanceWorks.
Right.
So I joined there as a student. Then I really loved it. That was my first, I would say, exposure to any kind of performing arts properly. Because before that, I mean, pretty much the journey to get into IIT is itself very exhausting to pursue.
Diverse career. I mean, of course, the career choice versus hobby, but then very, very diverse sort of interests, right? We don't usually come across that.
No, it was, in a way, it was turning out to be a career at one point of time because I was good at it, and I was then I started teaching. So according to my students, I was a good teacher too.
Right.
But then some things didn't add up. Like a lot of people in dancing, they start very, very early in their life. Something like a 3-4 year old is normal for people who dominate at the global level. I started, on the other hand, like around 18 or 19. So my thought was always that, will I be the world's best? And the odds were sort of against me on that by like physically itself. So right. I was like, probably this is not for me for the long run. And of course, I was from IIT, so the tech bug was there. And then I was into performing arts, so I did understand great sound and everything. And around that same time, me and Ayush, we met through mutual friends, and we were sort of thinking that we don't really have a good wireless audio product for ourselves. Like, we could find a Bose or a Sony or these expensive brands, but then if you went lower in the price point, then you had some Chinese fake brands or something. So there was no brand wireless that time. This is 2017 late, something like that. I mean, the bigger brands who lead this space today, they were there, but market itself was on 95% like wired earphones that time, or wired headphones, and they were already dominating that space. So that's how it began, more like a thing that we made for ourselves. Then we tried putting it on Amazon. We had a lot of beginner's luck on our side, I would say. So that sort of became the accidental journey to begin Leaf.
Right. Yeah, and I heard there are some 5 founders behind Leaf Studios, and there's also what I see is you're completely bootstrapped. So how has it been kind of building a brand from scratch without any funding in the age of VC funding? How has that turned out to be? And any things that you'd like to share, because this is a big deal, I would say.
Yeah, so about starting with the founders bit, yes, we were 5 co-founders who started this company together. We actually had a company before this also, which didn't really work out. It was into wearable tech only. So then sort of this happened, Leaf happened, and that turned out well. Right now, Ayush and I mostly lead it because it doesn't really need 5 people. So the other 3 are doing great ventures right now in different sectors, but Ayush and I lead this. Apart from that, you were mentioning about the bootstrap thing. So of course, mixed experiences there. It's great to have a lot of control. It's great to have complete autonomy, but then the journey also is very tough. And being very candid, staying bootstrapped wasn't really the first choice, honestly.
Okay.
We did try to raise funds for this brand at some point. And like many other people in our category did. But of course, the curse of the past experiences of investors still exists, and no one was ready to take a bet on this space. Even the leaders in our category have got probably more no's than us. And I'm not saying I have gotten any yeses, but everyone has gotten a lot of no's. Bigger the player, more the number of no's. Funnily. So I mean, the category was itself tough to operate in because of the threat that people perceived would be there from the Chinese brands. And then we of course had to do it completely bootstrapped. So the pro side of building a bootstrapped venture, I would say, was that we didn't really make too many expensive mistakes. So our planning was always on point. Our strategy was always very lean. We were very fast, I would say, because it was not really about spreading thin for us, right? We had to take a call, this is what we want to do, and then we have to do it very, very properly. There is very less room for error, honestly, in a bootstrapped venture. But then you also develop this DNA internally to not throw money at the problem, whatever comes your way. You figure out smarter ways to solve challenges, and that creates, I think, a stronger team, which is more on toes with whatever problems that comes their way. So that was the bootstrapped experience, I would say, generally speaking.
And does that also reflect in your marketing strategy? Because of course, D2C brands are also out there spending a lot of marketing bucks in order to, get their acquisition funnel going, right? So, so when you say that, you don't put your money on the line or spread yourself too thin, do you also take very calculated risks when it comes to your marketing? And would you like to say something about that?
Sure. So, I mean, there are some mental models that exist around this customer acquisition, because a lot of times I tell wherever I'm speaking that why are we even bothering to call this a D2C sector? It's pretty much a CAC sector, because everyone keeps talking about that only half the time. So, like, even if you called it a CAC podcast, I think still the D2C players would only come, the same kind of audience would come, because they are very obsessive about it.
Yeah. But so, that's the nature of the business, right?
That's the nature of the business, correct.
Digitally, so.
Yeah, so we had some mental models internally that in generally, like, if there is something which is being done by a lot of brands, that marketing channel will not really stay economical for us. So try to find places where your customer still hangs out digitally, but not a lot of people are marketing there. For example, a simple example could be that I think brands were relatively slower to adopt Reels as a medium to go viral.
Right.
We did a better job at that by moving the content faster to Reels by partnering with influencers. So we do very well on the influencers front, honestly. Then I remember early days of Cred. So not a lot of brands were on Cred. We were the first brand on Cred in the category. So we took a punt there because we knew not a lot of people are doing it right now. So that worked out really well for us. There was a massive awareness that happened because all the eyeballs were on us, right? There were not many brands that you could see on that platform. So like this, these are some examples, but always we more than we say yes to a marketing channel, we probably say no 10 times more to a channel where a lot of brands already are trying to acquire customers. I think that as a mental model worked really well for us. That so I also talk about this internally, that as a brand, as a team, and even as individuals, this is a world full of opportunities, and we are what we say no to, not what we say yes to. Because we can say opportunities just keep coming. So we say yes to those things we don't want to say no to. Most of the times we are only saying no to a lot of opportunities. So we have, in order to run it bootstrapped, in order to run it in a very disciplined way, we have had to say a lot of no's to a lot of channels which could have been promising, but they were just not making sense for us on paper. And if it's not making sense in theory, how will it make sense in practical level? So the approach is that.
Very, very interesting. So, almost like observing a trend and catching on to it before anyone else does, and riding on it,
Yeah.
and then moving out and probably going to another channel where others are not there, which is
Correct.
not there.
And especially if you have a category where the category leaders have a lot of muscle, it is very important to understand that you can't win this game of muscle. You have to win it with some cleverness or some wittiness in your plan. You have to take an alternate route. So for example, building the whole brand around binge was one such strategic call for us. Okay, we realized that every player in the category was talking about bass. Every player in the category was coming from the angle of this is great for music lovers, and it makes sense. Headphones are used for listening music more, but binge watching as a culture was relatively new. I mean, when did you buy your first Netflix subscription? I bet it was not before 2014. So it has been less than a decade that the binge watching has existed in this country. And 2014, I'm talking about very, very early adopters. It has really flown much later. So currently, like, India has more than 50 million OTT subscribers. I mean, that's a great market, but no brand was building specifically for them. A binge viewer does not care about bass much, especially at least for that use case. Bass doesn't really matter. What matters more is comfort.
Right.
Binge watching a Friends season, 20 episodes, 25 minutes each, that's 500 minutes of binge watching, and people do this.
Yeah.
So
stronger battery life is more important for them.
A longer battery life is important. Supreme comfort is more important. Clarity in sound is very important. So and of course the brand communication is also a key, right? You have to tell a compelling story to them, that what do we stand for. So we stand for this culture of binge watching, and we love it. I am myself a binge viewer. At times I feel, is this just a personal project, or whatever I like, I goes out into the brand, but somehow it works. Probably there are a lot of people like me and Ayush who love this. So
that I'm sure there are. I mean, I think it's most of us in the millennials and Gen Zs are all binge watching at some point or the other, right? But don't you think it's a very niche positioning for your brand? And I mean, let's start with maybe what sort of consumer trends led you on to that positioning, right? And how do you see that actually translating into your product or your marketing strategy, maybe for the coming years? Because with this sort of niche positioning, you possibly would be talking to only a certain set of customers. So does that restrict you in any way in terms of the kind of products that you might want to work with in future, or what is it? How are you thinking?
Sure, no, it's a very good question, but let's address the fact, the word niche. Is it really a niche? Is the point. Okay. So like I said, India has 50 million OTT subscribers, and OTT is not free in India. You have to pay for OTT in India, right? And it should not be free. So it's not free. It's a digital service that people pay for. So safe to assume that if in India someone is paying for a digital service, they can very much afford a headphone for like $1,000-$1,500. Okay, so that makes this TG very dense in terms of purchasing power. Not really the case with music listening. A lot of music listeners are on free versions of their music streaming apps, right? So in that sense, it's a very dense market with respect to purchasing power when it comes. The other way to look at it is, see, a binge viewer, let's say, buys a headphone every year. And this is not Hawa mein. I know that frequency of purchase is 11 months between two headphone purchases across brands on marketplaces. So not Leaf user buying another Leaf user, but let's say X brand's user buying any other brands or that X brand's headphone. Again, the purchase frequency is 11 months. So that means practically every year one headphone someone is trying to purchase. If you are the star of this binge viewing market or among these OTT subscribers, that's like 5 crores people, and $1,000 for a headphone, that's a 5,000 crore annualized market if you look at it in that way. Now the point is, there will be two kind of people. One kind of person would be who buys one headphone and uses it for everything. For this user, if binge watching is the most important function, they will be our customer and they should be our customer. Other kind of people, which is a significant chunk of people, is that they have multiple headphones. They own multiple headphones for different things, different places. They have a separate one for home, they have a separate one for office, they have a separate one for calling, they have a separate one for listening to music, they have a separate one for gym altogether. So for to such a consumer, it's very it's relatively easy to tell your story that, dude, you want to binge watch, you should not be binge watching on a generic headphone. Buy it from a specialist like us, who is building that with that use case in the mind. So that if you now look at it, it's suddenly not a niche, right? Because there are a lot of people who are your potential customers in this. Now the other thing becomes is that, like, remember we were talking about the CAC bit at one point of time. So one thing that really worked for us was that we built in a brag-worthy proposition, which was crazy. Okay, so we realized that none of our competitors really have a tech DNA.
Right.
So we do. So can it be our strength in some way? Now, the moment you try to put any extra innovative tech into hardware, it gets costly. So a lot of people will get priced out. It will become a niche play. So we took a call to build something on the software front. So what we did was we built this proprietary technology. It's a patent. We have the patent on that. It's granted. It's personalized audio. So every Leaf headphone or earphone or a TWS can connect to the Leaf app. The Leaf app takes a hearing test, understands how sensitive you are, your ears are to what kind of sounds, and then personalizes the whole experience. So the binge watching experience goes like next level. Now this gives a very compelling argument to our customers as to why they bought a Leaf and not any other brand. Correct. This leads to a lot of word of mouth. Like, to put a number to it, more than 21% of our customers who transact every day on our website have heard it from a friend who was using Leaf. Now that's a great number to have, according to me, because then you are able to create a lot of conversations out there. Other thing is, it gives the binge angle gives a very compelling reason to someone that, oh, I have X brand ka headphone, but I can still have a Leaf. That is also something which prevents us from becoming a niche player, because the brand story is completely different. And Gen Z does look at stories while buying, so do millennials now. So
it also helps you in building that brand identity, so to speak, at a price point which is competitive as well, by using technology as well, right?
Correct.
Which nobody else is doing. So gives you that competitive edge as well.
Correct.
Yeah. Right. Great. So as I see, the D2C model in India, it kind of took off. I mean, while you found Leaf back in 2017 towards the end right? But the D2C model kind of took off, or even Ecommerce shopping kind of took off after the pandemic. And D2C especially is now being pegged at around $100 billion market, right, by 2025. And after fashion, which has the highest growth potential, so does consumer electronics. So how are you looking at it? Like, what would your thoughts be on this, being a founder of a D2C brand, currently selling headphones, but would you also be expanding, and how do you see this whole growth opportunity for yourself or for the brand?
Got it. So, let's start with the D2C thing that you said, right? That India has started to transact directly with the brand, and the number is projected to go up. Yeah, agreed. Sure, why not? And honestly, I have personally been very, very bullish about it. Like, I don't have the number to put on this, but we must be one of the very, very early brands who moved to Shopify. We were like, this is going to fly. At times, I wonder why I did not invest in Shopify that early, because we really loved the product and the way the website was coming out with Shopify. So Shopify has been a very, very big enabler. in terms of building a no-code D2C store. I think that was one big pivotal point that happened. When I say I'm extremely bullish about D2C, this I can put a number to. Most of the brands who call themselves D2C brands are actually marketplace dominant, which is not a bad thing. D2C doesn't need to mean that someone is selling through their Shopify store only. It's more about being in touch with your customers. So that's completely okay. But in a way, if you see, the customer is still transacting on Amazon and hasn't really built out the trust to transact on the brand's website. For us, A, personally, I was very bullish on D2C, that this is great. B, I really wanted to own our customer and not be at mercy of a marketplace only to even induce the repeat purchase. I don't really have means to communicate to the customer who has transacted through Amazon or that we have acquired through Amazon. So that was second reason. And third reason was that our category was super duper competitive on marketplaces. So like I said, we are what we say no to. So we were very well timed to say no to marketplaces early on. We were like, okay, we'll be there because few customers will want to transact there at all times, but we will not make it everything of the brand. That Amazon, Flipkart, if we are a hit, then only we are going to work. So we shifted our focus to D2C completely, you can say. And this is around 3 years ago. So we completely shifted our focus to D2C. We were like, for other brands, D2C is sort of becoming the secondary channel. They are focusing on scaling through marketplaces. What if we kill it in the D2C space with our creativity, and can we do that? So I think that worked out really well for us. A lot of brands in this category who didn't do this and opted to stay on marketplaces are mostly not visible right now, I would say, because again, the player with the muscle is leading there, which was the assumption, right? So we were very bullish on D2C. We, like I said, we do influencers. We did great on social media. We did other collaborations with partners. And today, like more than 80% of our revenue is our own D2C store, which is a very unheard of number in most D2C brands, and definitely not in my category.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's significant scale. Like we recently crossed more than 1 million customers overall for the brand till date, which is again not a small number.
Non-unique, but or unique customers.
Unique
Customers. Okay.
So which is a big number. So I'm trying to say we've been very, very bullish about D2C. How can it go even bigger? Of course, I see there can be multiple ways. For example, I haven't really seen the uptick yet in social commerce, but it might pick up very well. That customers transacting over WhatsApp or let's say directly on Instagram with the brand, that can be a very, very big lever to push it up. And one more interesting thing which I came across recently was one of my aunt told me that I bought your leaf product from Instagram. I said, what do you mean by you bought it from Instagram? You can't really buy it on Instagram. So she was like, no, your ad came. So I clicked on the ad and then I bought it. So actually she had gone to my website.
Right. But
the
from
Instagram,
it was so
in her head, she's bought it from Instagram, not from my website.
Right.
So she's a D2C customer, but in her head, she's bought it from Instagram. Leaf, she has bought it from Instagram. So that was very interesting to note. I wonder how many more people think like that. And probably it's a thing if you go beyond. So that's another interesting.
Just how did you solve the trust problem then? Because that is also a perennial problem for D2C websites, brands that are selling through the D2C channel. To build that trust, because customers don't really know you. There are so many brands who are selling almost very similar products to you on using similar kind of channels or like influencers, etc. So how did you, I think it will be very interesting for other D2C brands also to know this. How did you exactly start building trust, and at what point did that start happening for you?
Interesting question. Yeah. So, see, the answer in a nutshell is slowly. And it can't be. There is no such thing as blitz scaling of trust. I mean, it can be hacked in some way by doing an ATL campaign, like you put yourself on the front of a newspaper, but that's not a choice a lot of times, right? So being a bootstrapped venture, we did understand that it is going to happen slowly. It will not happen overnight. The good thing about a geography like India is that I would say there are a lot of people who are very risky with their online shopping. Like they like trying out new brands. They like giving a chance to a new brand. And that's very interesting. So, like according to me, brand loyalty is dead already. There's no such thing as brand loyalty. Either you are exciting the second time they are trying to purchase, or you are not. And if you were exciting, they would still buy from you, which you would think that it's a repeat purchase because of brand loyalty. I really doubt it, honestly. Right? So a brand has to keep doing great every time. People are trying out new brands. Now the sane way to create trust is that the people who are taking a punt on your brand, you cater them really well and build in the hooks which lead to a lot of conversations about the brand. Like I said, the Leaf app that I'm talking about, it's not even a shopping app. People can't really shop Leaf products on that. I mean, they can, but it's not the best experience. But it's a massive conversation starter. So we worked on it deliberately. Ki ye hoga. So then things sort of start compounding. Let's say over a year, putting a random number through it, you have had 1,000 customers who have taken a punt of transacting on your store directly. If there are enough conversations built up, this number will grow next year, next month, next week, whatever is your metric to track. So the compounding really can hit when it comes to trust. And another cool metric, I think, which should be seen is how many people are actually transacting prepaid on your store. That is a better marker of trust. Transacting on your store is not really a marker of trust. Like I said, unko lag raha hai Instagram pe shopping. So,
right.
They have placed a cash on delivery order. If the order doesn't come, they'll just reject it.
They're okay with
it.
Or
they didn't lose anything. I think the real marker of trust is how many people are prepaid. So a lot of times when I speak to brands in grooming, men's grooming, I don't want to name them, but like they are also one of your clients, by the way. And I was talking to them and they were like, our prepaid is like 70%. I was like, wow, what are you saying? Like, yeah. So they had a lower prepaid share before GoKwik.
Yeah.
It sort of doubled after GoKwik because of the prepaid discount. But still, that number was very high before and after both. So that's when I realized that if there is a certain level of awareness for the brand, the trust is higher. The trust can be seen in how many people are doing a prepaid. Because doing a prepaid order is very easy. Like everyone has UPI. So if someone is not doing a UPI order, even after being offered a prepaid discount, that means they don't really trust your brand yet with their money, and they're taking a safer option of a cash on delivery.
That's an interesting perspective. Yeah. I bet we've not really thought in those terms, and we should think about it. But taking cue from your just what you just said, so do you think retention is a myth in that sense?
No, retention is a strategy. Okay. So retention is not a myth. Retention is a strategy. I'm saying if you are thinking that you will retain your customers by not doing anything, that is a myth. It is no more true that, of course, it might be true in some categories like cosmetics, for example. Very tough to shift, or people don't want to try a lot of things. But let me not be the expert of every category. Let me talk about my category.
Right.
Okay. So in audio, or in general, let's say talk about consumer electronics. Do you realize that most of the people in their life haven't really bought the same appliance from the same brand again? Like I remember my first TV that I saw in my life, which my family had, was a BPL. Then it was an Oneida. Then it was a Sony. Now it's a Xiaomi. Probably tomorrow it will be a OnePlus. Then later might be, I don't know what, if Apple launches it. So where is the brand loyalty? I don't understand. You have to stay very, very exciting, at least in this category. So, but however, if at the time I'm making a second choice, that what's the next headphone that I want to buy, if that time Leaf is again the most exciting option, for me, then I will buy a leaf again. So
Got it.
then my retention strategy is winning and my brand strategy is winning for the second time. It's not that the consumer is not ready to explore other options. They are not saying anything like this, that, oh, if it's not a leaf, I'm going to leave using headphones. That's not true. They have options, and it's true for every brand. Okay, the retention strategy has to ensure that if you are the most exciting brand still for the second time purchase, then you should be out there and the customer should know that you are still the most exciting brand to buy from. So I think in that sense, retention is a strategy. It's not a myth.
Yeah, interesting. So what do you think, what sort of consumer trends are you now seeing? I also saw in our own GoKwik network data that suddenly around these sale periods and overall as well, there is a lot of shopping that's happening from tier 2, tier 3 cities. Is that also something that you're seeing? Or there are also a lot of D2C brands who are going into the whole customer experience beyond the digital space and opening up to, omni-channel. That's also happening to some extent in certain categories. What are some of the trends that you see in your category, and what are you really banking on, and what are you adapting into your maybe your product strategy, your product innovation, or anything that that you're planning for this year and beyond?
Sure. So see, honestly, omni-channel I'm not an expert of, because we mostly only do actually online, and in that too we mostly do D2C.
Right.
So my expertise is very in a certain segment only of this whole discussion, but I will talk properly about that. So where you mentioned about tier 2 cities coming up, right?
Any
That's
other
true.
consumer trends that
That's
you
true.
are observing as well?
So like I said, that's completely true. The share of orders coming from beyond top 10 cities of India has been going up regularly. I also see a very interesting trend, at least in my category, is that the number of female shoppers has gone up over years. I'm very sure females were using headphones before also, but probably they've started shopping it themselves now. So that's very, very interesting. Now, suddenly it's not just the user who's a female, it's also the customer who's also a female. Like, the numbers were shocking. I didn't understand why this was the case for a very long time, that why 90% of our customers were males. It doesn't make sense. Everyone has a headphone. Why should males be 90% of customers? I was like, have we made a boisterous website or something that only boys are interested in this website? But turns out that
I think it goes with the category, right? Electronics, finance, personal finance. These are just expected that men know better. But I guess that's changing, and that's also changing in the finance space as well.
Correct. So exactly, I've heard that it's also changing in finance, but in this though, I've seen it firsthand. So that was a lot of fun. I did get to know, like, when I was very curious on this insight, why is it happening? I did get to know that Indian family households, where most of the electronics decisions are made by males. So weird, but it's now changing. So now that also changes a lot of things for us, right? We have to ensure that it's appealing to a different customer altogether. So,
it's more inclusive, right? I mean, you'll have to have that in your strategy.
I mean, yes, I have to have it in my strategy. Honestly, see, my first responsibility is towards my brand, right? If 90% customers were males, it only makes sense to sort of double down on that. But now it's changing. So we are also changing along with that. So that was an interesting insight with respect to D2C that I saw personally. Other is that Gen Z did topple millennials recently in ours. Like, I don't know how it is happening, but it's happening. Like,
spending power. I mean,
I don't know. Maybe these Slice and Jupiter cards have done the trick there.
Right.
It's working. Somehow it's working. Like, it's a very healthy equal split, but now it's slightly higher on the Gen Z side. I mean, it's the having a brand which is dominant on Gen Z is the biggest validation a millennial founder can have, according to me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
because
fun.
they're nitpickers, right? So yeah.
Yeah. So that's fun. And what else? What else is interesting? Yeah, pretty much. If more things come, I'll
Apart
let you
from
know.
consumer trends, I mean, any trends in D2C that you see, specific to your category, like, for example, chat commerce.
We've been trying to get our hands on that properly. I mean, the experience is not at par according to me right now. So we are still working on it with partners who are working on this chat commerce bit, and we will be out there soon. It seems promising to me. It should work. Theoretically, it should work. Like I say, if it doesn't work in theory, it won't work in practical also. In theory, it should work crazy good. So let's see how that works.
So you are planning to try that out. You are evaluating options to do that.
Yeah. Of course, we work on it. Correct.
So good. I mean, so social commerce is one that, of course, and chat commerce. All right. So what do you think about? I mean, you're using technology. I think technology is at the core of what you're building, right?
Yeah.
So how do you see this playing out for the D2C space? Going hand in hand, technology and D2C. Do you see that going hand in hand, and for other sectors, other players as well, for yourself as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm of course very bullish on adopting new technologies. Like, at times my team is worried, why do we have so many Shopify apps? I'm like, you have to find seamless ways if you really want to scale. For example, I have divided the tech stack into two things. One is sort of an entry level tech stack that you need for any brand. Let's say if I were to start a brand today, Shopify would be the first piece of tech that would come in, right? And you can really do with that to begin with. But let's say now the number of customers are increasing, number of support queries are increasing, then you need something like a fresh desk to be integrated to solve that problem. Now, the point is we have to sort of upgrade this tech stack every year, because actually faster than that. For example, at one point of time, it was becoming very tedious to approve return requests or replacement requests fast. It is very easy to look at a screen according to whatever customer has sent and make a decision. But the flow was not one click. So we actually invested on a custom piece of tech also to get this done. And then our TATs for like customer resolution went from, 48 hours to less than 12 hours. So this scale of impact can only come with tech. Like you can think of putting many more people on the job and try to reduce the TAT, but then there are always clever ways. And connecting the dots back to being a bootstrap founder, right? Yeah. I know that I cannot, the solution is not to put 10 more customer representatives. The solution is to make one person much more efficient with technology.
Absolutely.
So technology is the biggest efficiency lever, according to me. And every problem that a brand should faces, the first hunch in the DNA of the company should be to think tech. Is there a tech solution to it? Because the problem has come today. With scale, the problem will keep becoming bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So if you solve it today at this scale, you'll have a better life tomorrow. And more generally, you don't have a better life, but a new problem comes. So if the old problem also existed at that point of time, then you'll be just in a flood of problems. So for example, this one-click thing to initiate returns and replacements by our customer support team, this we got when we were like 1/4 of the scale of where we are right now. But that piece of tech works seamlessly right now also. Now imagine it's funny that the return on investment of that tech piece is only going up with time. Because and
because the more you're acquiring, the more it is getting used.
Yeah. If you see the number of resolutions that piece of tech has done, and has only gone up with time on aggregate and per day basis both. So this is the beauty of tech. This is called the marginal cost of replication, right? That is very low in tech. So one must try to adopt tech in every place possible. For example, if I have to talk about you guys, it was very tough for me to be okay with the fact that we are going to remove Shopify's checkout and put a custom checkout layer on top of that. It basically is what it meant for me was that now I'm thinking Shopify is only a order management solution, and checkout is not their expertise, and we will go with GoKwik. But then I also did realize that is India the biggest focus for Shopify when it comes to checkout experiences, or US is? So US, Canada, or Europe are the bigger markets in terms of purchasing power or whatever. So I realized the checkout is great, but it's done thinking of them, not of us. So that is what made me open towards exploring GoKwik's tech, and then we tried. Of course, it works well. That is why we are working, and that was another way where we. So in a way, we were open to new tech coming on into the checkout thing, right? So that was fun, and then we also got to try that prepaid thing better. Like I said, prepaid is a mark of trust.
Right
now, because we were able to offer an additional prepaid discount. Iske baad bhi, if someone is opting for a COD, that means we have a longer journey with them to establish trust. But for the one who has, we've clearly established trust with them. So the piece of tech works very well there. Yeah.
Right. And what about in terms of creating a unique or maybe customized, personalized shopping experience using technology? Are you also thinking on those lines? Because you said that D2C almost is 80% of your sales. So you are going to stay digital and digitally reaching out to your customers. So how are you thinking of using technology to kind of provide a very good experience so that these customers constantly find value in what you're trying to promise to them?
Yeah, so again, like, personalization is a two-edged sword if done too much, according to me. Like, what if a website starts to change colors according to the user who is coming? Essentially, the brand would not have any identity, right? No, two people will not be able to talk. Which brand are they talking about? Imagine you are reading Binge with Leaf and someone else is reading that Leaf is great for binge. So the brand identity will not stay intact at scale. So in some cases, you have to let go of personalization. But let's say post checkout experience, or post abandoned cart experience, or post drop off from the website experience. I think those things should be very, very personalized.
Right.
For example, for me, we've been still thinking, why are we so stuck up with language being English? Like, I do understand that English does translate into trust a lot of times, especially, let's say, on prepaid side. People don't want native languages to be there. And I also understand that it's not there on the website. That is also still fine. But when you are trying to win back the customer, why can't we have it that time? It's just a mail. It's just an SMS. Why does it have to be in English all the time? You can do a better job there. So we're starting with those baby steps. Then probably one day it becomes more inclusive on the shopping experience also.
Great. I think some great insights there, Paras. Thank you for joining us today. Any last thoughts, any advices, any suggestions that you want to give out to the whole community, D2C community? Any thoughts?
So there's this thing that we have internally where I tell all of my team that businesses can be built with brains, but brands are only built with heart. So if your org has only one of them, it's not going to really fly as a brand. Of course, if you have none of them, then nothing will happen. But if you have one of them, then you better start working on getting the other one right. So for example, binge is something that comes from the heart for us, right? There's an emotion that we obsess about. But this CAC play that we do, it's a very brainsy thing. you can't be all heart in that. So when we look at CAC, it looks like a mathematical problem to us, and when we look at the brand, it feels like an emotional challenge to us. So a good brand has to be both.
Good balance and good mix of both.
And context switching, like एकदम पूरा दिल से करेगा तो फिर you'll lose out, you'll not be a brand which is strong with numbers internally.
Right.
And if it's all brains, then it'll just be a brand that no one connects with, which will not work out. Honestly, in long term, it will not work out.
Yeah. The whole conversation between performance over brand over performance, I think it's a mix of two, and it's always going to be that way.
I think for me personally, I think starting should be with heart. Like a lot of heart has to be there in the brand. There is no replacement to heart in the brand, according to me. Very often you see that the brand story stays intact for a lot of startups, right? Like, let's say talk about Mom's Co or Mamaearth. The heart was always there.
Absolutely.
Of course, the brains was also there, but the heart was there.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of people with brains, but not a lot of people with heart. So in early days, I think heart is very important. Agar wo nahi hai, to do something about it, I think.
Yeah. Great piece of advice, I think. And thank you for joining us today, Paras, and answering all these barrage of questions with us. Thank you for spending time with us today, this afternoon. Great to have you here.
Thank you so much for having a lovely conversation with you, Joyeeta.
Same here. Thank you so much.